Wham, I'm starting. And I'm so excited for today's broadcast. Not only is the topic one that you can all relate to, but I also have two of my favorite people in the world again today on the David and Jill show with my beloved and amazing, gracious, genius level colleague from my Stanford Tuesday training group, Dr. Jill Levitt, who's absolutely magnificent. And equally magnificent is our special guest, Mike Christensen, who's been joining fully on these podcasts from Canada, who is a certified team therapist and has a practice doing team therapy in Canada, all over Canada actually, and also teaches team therapy on live. So welcome all of you guys. Hello.
It's great to be here.
Thanks, David. Welcome.
We're going to be focusing differently from last week. This is going to be part 2 on habits and addictions. But we're going to talk about the kind of habits and addictions that all of you folks have who are watching, and practical tools that you can use to overcome them. Let's just talking about the kinds of habits and addictions we're going to be talking about today. First of all, overeating. All of you who have trouble overeating, raise your hands. Okay, I can see that's about 2/3 of our audience. And then we've got excessive drinking. We've got shopaholic, which is surprisingly common. People are always asking me, how do I get over my shopping addiction?
Yeah.
What are some more, guys?
There's certainly procrastination, and one of the ones that seems to be just a growing concern is media, where we just can't seem to get off of our media, our phones or our tablets or television. Netflix addiction.
Right.
Or even like Facebook broadcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, get off, everyone. What are you doing watching us?
What else? What other addictions are we going to be talking about today?
So I don't know that we'll be talking about it today, but certainly in this category is sex addictions, pornography addiction, gambling addictions.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes people have exercise addictions.
Or a lack of exercise addiction.
Right. I would put that in the sort of procrastination category. But basically, I think it's helpful to share with people that the tools we're sharing with you today can help you to not do the things that you don't want to do, like overeat, but they can also help you to do the things that you've been putting off in the case of eating well, exercising, paying your taxes.
Oh, yes, like filing and taxes. That's another good habit addiction avoidance thing. We got some hellos from people, and then we'll dive right in. We've got Roger Parnham from Arizona, TJ Lucian. Having Amazon always makes controlling your shopping extra tricky. Absolutely. Lisa Kelly, our beloved Lisa Kelly. And Lisa, at the end, we're going to save our brief commercials to the end, and we're going to tell people to link to my website and the Feeling Good Institute website for certain workshops and trainings we're going to mention. Mimi Lee, hello to you, Mimi. Phil McCormack says loud and clear. Yehuda, hello from Mexico. Hello to you, Yehuda. I remember our dinner in Denver very, very warmly. Dante Murta, hello, Don here. And Julianne Lindeen, hello. Thank you for hosting today. You're very welcome. So let's dive in. And the lovely and brilliant Jill will now make
feel the
a few
pressure.
introductory comments on the concept of specificity.
Okay, well, let's think about it. We wanted to try to make this broadcast meaningful for people, both in terms of how do you help people with habits and addictions, and also meaningful on a personal level where you could use these tools and apply them to yourself. And so I guess we could say when we have a patient who comes in to see us who wants help with with a habit or with an addiction, what we want to do after we sort of empathize and listen and connect with them is move toward what we call specificity, which is getting the person to start to really identify what is the exact kind of behavior that they want to change. So someone who says, you know, I want to eat healthier. When do you want to eat healthier? How do you want to eat healthier? What does it mean? How do we define that? How can we specify it? So we're, you know, maybe they narrow that down to something like, I don't want to have 2 servings, or I want to cut out sugar from my diet, or, you know, I want to only eat what's in my house and not go out to eat so that I don't overeat.
I think the idea of specificity is really important, and it makes the therapy individualized. And that's an important distinction from most treatments for habits and addictions. For example, if someone says, oh, I want to stop procrastinating, can you help me? I say, I'd be very pleased to. What time of day would you like to stop? And then they say, like, what are you talking about? And I would say, well, what's something you've been procrastinating on, you'd like to start working on today? And what time today would you like to do it? Then you've got something very real and very individual for a person. Or if someone says, I want help losing weight, I'd say, well, great, I'd be glad to help you. What time of day would you like help? You know, where are you going to be? Well, maybe every morning I walk past my favorite bakery and I smell these glazed donuts and I end up going in and eating, you know, 3 or 6 of them. Now we've got something specific to work on, and that's very different from, you know, Weight Watchers or psychotherapy treatments for so-called eating disorders, where you have a program that you're going to sell to the patient, and there's some value in that. Some people are helped by that, but everyone kind of gets more or less the same thing. And although we have techniques that can be helpful to everyone, they're highly individualized.
I think the other thing is that if we stay too global with our problem like that, then when we get to using the tools, it can be very easy to talk ourselves out of it. Whereas if we're real specific, then we have particular specific actions that we can take for that as well.
Right. Now, to kick us off, I can have everyone in the audience who's interested we can do a kind of exercise together, and I've chosen a very common problem just so everyone can identify with it, so you get a feel for it. But one of the things that really distinguishes team therapy, whether it's for the treatment of depression or anxiety or relationship problems or habits and addictions, is that almost all therapists, not all, but almost all therapists, if you have a problem, the therapist will try to help you with it and sell you on change. And when it comes to habits and addictions, or almost anything, to tell you the truth, you know, selling people on change has a real high failure rate, because you end up running into resistance and non-compliance. And so in team, we've taken a radical step in the opposite direction, is we become the voice of the patient's subconscious resistance, and point out all the good reasons not to change, to stick with the status quo. And then it becomes the patient's job to either say, no, I don't want to change, you're right, in which case we sit with open hands and don't work on the problem. Or more likely, then the patient will say, oh, but I really do want to change, and then you've got a highly motivated patient. But the technique we're going to do right now will seem very radical to therapists who have never heard about it before. And it's one I developed fairly recently. I wanted to simplify my decision-making tool, which is a fantastic tool for the treatment of a first step in the treatment of any habit or addiction, but it's too complex for this format. And so I've simplified it into what I call the double paradox. And let's do a double paradox together, and let's look at the common problem of overeating. And a lot of times, like on hikes, I'll be working with a therapist, say, oh, David, help me with my overeating problem. And I say, well, okay, but before I can do that, I've got some great tools. But let's look at all the advantages of eating whatever you want, whenever you want, as much as you want, in one column, and then in the opposite column, we'll list the disadvantages of diet and exercise. Now, notice what I just said, because it's not what you're familiar with. It's the advantages of overeating and the disadvantages of diet and exercise. So these are the two powerful forces actually make you resist any change in your eating behavior. So let's do this together. So take a piece of paper. See, I've got one right here, and I've listed in this column the advantages of overeating, eating as much as you want, whenever you want. Oh, you've got a printed one there. That's good. Is that a double paradox sheet?
That one.
What does it say?
It says double paradox.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So maybe, is that in my toolkit?
This is a prototype that you're working on for your new book, I think.
Oh, okay. Great. Well,
I just haven't sent it to you yet.
It's brilliant, I'm sure. So
now you don't have to recreate it, David.
What are some advantages of eating as much as you want, of whatever you want, whenever you want?
Instant pleasure.
Huh?
Instant pleasure.
Tremendous pleasure.
Yum.
Yeah, pleasure. Yum. And we could add that this is consistent with Buddhist teachings. And whenever you see a statue of the Buddha, he's sitting, he's a little on the plump side, right? And the Dalai Lama said that the purpose of life, the meaning of life is to find happiness. And so certainly when you're eating and enjoying food, you're doing something very, very spiritual. So let's put spiritually fulfilling as our second benefit.
That's a new one for me.
Well, I just thought of it. What are some other benefits of eating whatever you want, whenever you want?
You don't have to plan. You don't have to think about it. You can just kind of eat.
Yeah, so it's easy and no effort.
Oftentimes it's polite and social.
Yeah,
right. You don't want to offend somebody by not having that delicious dessert they prepared.
Right. But another big advantage, and you should all, who are you listening, if you want to learn this technique, because you can use it for any habit and addiction. It's a super powerful technique. Another benefit is that you can reward yourself for having a crappy day, right?
Yeah.
So you're working hard, you're running into frustration, people are irritating you, and you need your reward.
Right. And if people in the audience are thinking, this doesn't make sense, we could reward ourselves with something else. The idea is that on some level, what we're saying is true. Like the opposite might be true too, but your patient who comes to see you certainly has these kinds of advantages in their mind, right? And instead of it being your job to convince them about how important healthy eating is and self-discipline and all of this, instead we're going to kind of join with the subconscious mind, right? Join with their resistance, kind of lay it all out.
Exactly. And another advantage is that it may be my only source of satisfaction in my life, or my greatest source of satisfaction.
The other one is that if you've been kind of punishing yourself for not keeping to your diet, you can tell yourself, well, I worked hard this morning, or I did my walk, or my workout at the gym. I deserve a treat. Yeah. I deserve to eat whatever I want.
Yeah. So another advantage is I deserve I deserve these treats. And so far we got it's tremendous pleasure, yum, spiritually fulfilling. It's easy, no effort required. It's sometimes the polite thing to do. It gives me a reward for frustration and irritation and hassles in my life. It may be my greatest or only source of satisfaction or pleasure or joy or comfort. And another thing is I deserve these treats. I deserve some pleasure in my life. Anything else?
I was just thinking comfort. It's times if we're having a tough time, we need a little comfort food.
Yeah.
Right? It can help heal the pain of the life of, stress, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
There can be also like I don't know how family connection or friend connection, like this idea that food connects us or something.
Oh yeah,
I see that better, but
family connection, and loving relationships.
Right, like so. Some people, I can imagine some couples maybe like sit down and enjoy a nice meal and a glass of wine. Like there's something about the tradition of eating, indulging together.
Oh yes, like Thanksgiving.
Right.
Yeah. Or Christmas, or every Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. Every day can be Christmas.
Wednesday night. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great list, and in individual cases, you may come up with more, but I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So there are many advantages. Are these advantages real?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are they powerful?
Yeah.
Some more than others, but all of them have some power.
Yeah, they're all powerful, really.
David, I'm just looking. I just took a minute to look at the comments. So people have been writing in a couple of these as well.
Escape from unpleasant thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a good one. We're getting more. I'm going to add these.
Dan Prine wrote, avoid dating. Like maybe, I don't know if this is what you mean, but maybe like overeating keeps me heavy, and that keeps me from, intimacy or this kind of thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Oh, these are great additional ones. And then enjoying the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
avoiding unwanted
thing. Live in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Enjoy life now. Let's see. Oh, Rob. Hi, Rob DiGregorio, my number one fan.
Rob said he's joining us while running on the BU track because we just wanted him to get off his butt.
That's funny.
That's great.
Let's see what else we've got.
Julie said it saves time. No new shop idea. Like I don't have to meal plan. I can just kind of grab what I see on the go.
Yes.
Totally.
Oh, we have a great comment before we continue from Dominic. He says, David and Jill show, 4 question marks. I thought this was supposed to be George Burns and Gracie Allen. With 3 smiley faces. Hello from San Diego. Can we talk about porn some more? Okay, and let's see. Marla Strackrun is here, who comes up from Central Valley, 2-hour drive for Sunday hikes quite a bit.
Wow. Also a great
to all of you. And you might want to start typing what your habit and addiction is too. We have one from the porn guy, but some more from other people. Now let's talk about the disadvantages of diet and exercise.
It's hard.
Yep. It's hard.
So just to make sure people get it, so we're not looking at the disadvantages of overeating. Remember, that's what makes it the double paradox, right? We're looking at what are all the advantages of eating whatever you want, whenever you want, and then the opposite, what would be the disadvantages of kind of like of your goal, of the change. So that would be.
And we could easily set it up. What are the advantages of procrastinating and watching the sports on TV that are so important to me, and what are the disadvantages of sitting down to do my taxes?
Right.
Or what are the advantages of having, let's just say, a glass of wine? Now let's say 2 glasses of wine. No, let's say 3 glasses of wine, and then every night for my pleasure. And then what are the disadvantages of giving up
abstinence? Right.
Wine, the only source of joy and pleasure in my life. You can set this up for any habit and addiction.
Right.
So the disadvantages of diet and exercise is hard. Now, number 2, I would say it sucks.
It sucks.
And number say there's no pleasure. And number 4, I'd say there's no damn runner's high. It's just a myth.
But David, you don't relate to this at all, right? This problem.
No. I'm just making this up intellectually. No, there may be people who get the runner's high. I've never gotten anything but a runner's. I'm just glad that I got that darn thing over with.
Right.
Who likes eating salad and carrots?
Oh yeah, you have to eat carrot salad.
You have to eat food.
Yeah.
It's restrictive. Like, I want freedom. I want choice. I don't want to have to be restricted.
Yes, and another advantage that we didn't put is freedom, and I can be a rebel.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'll be a rebel. I don't have to follow rules, and I have freedom and joy.
So the opposite goes here, which is that it's restrictive, kind of like no free planning.
No pleasure. Oh, we got no pleasure already.
It's time consuming.
Time consuming.
Go to the gym and to shop differently.
You have to go out and run and it's raining or icy or snowing or drizzling, and you have to go over and slosh through all of that. And then another thing, other people will see how slow you are.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, actually,
embarrassing.
To be really serious about that, though, there is a piece of it that's. Sorry, I have a minor interruption here. There is a piece of it that can be very uncomfortable for people. If one is they need to get to the gym, people can feel very self-conscious starting to exercise if you're quite overweight.
Yeah, right? That's right.
Or very slow, as you said. Like it's embarrassing.
And self-conscious.
Yeah, self-conscious.
Dan Prine also joined us from down around where Marla lives in the Central Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan says you have to be disciplined. We didn't add that.
Yeah.
But you get discipline and deprivation instead of joy and euphoria. And no immediate reward, somebody just added.
Right. That's
Bobby
true.
Vervin.
Right.
No immediate reward.
You may have to lose some of your social activities, right? If you have your evening get together every Wednesday, book club or whatever, and really it's an eat club.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You might lose.
We say, it's time consuming. We got that one from Roger, but we've got that. Oh, it saves money on utilities, no stove or microwave. Now that's
Eating
not
out,
the right idea,
out
is
all
it?
the time. No, maybe he meant the advantages, or no?
The advantages of overeating, or the disadvantages
would be
of
that
dieting?
it saves. Yeah, I guess the advantage of overeating would be that it saves money. He's saying because then I don't need. It saves utilities because I don't need a stove. I don't need to cook. I just can go out and grab whatever I want whenever I want.
No, I think this person is confused, just looking at the disadvantages.
Oh, okay.
They're looking at the advantages of dieting, not the disadvantages of dieting. See, dieting saves money on food.
But you said
this person is confused. Julianne is thinking about a traditional cost, advantages, disadvantages, but this is a double paradox. Let's just quickly remind again the listeners of what we're doing here. Jill will do so.
You can go, Mike. Go ahead.
Sure. With the disadvantages of the diet and exercise, we're looking at the negative things that we're going to have to face and endure, not the positive things of diet and exercise, because positive things aren't going to convince us to diet and exercise, and they're not going to convince us to continue eating.
Mm-hmm.
The negative things are going to convince us to continue overeating. They're the powerful force. So we want to look at what those disadvantages of the diet and exercise.
Right? Yeah.
See, a lot of people are confused. See, they're saying one advantage is saves time, no need to grocery shop.
So, David, I think I could be wrong, but I understood. And these, well, let's at least say those would be correct for the advantages of eating whatever I want whenever I want. Because we were saying we eat out, we get donuts, we go to restaurants. So you could say an advantage of eating in that fashion means that I'm saving time and energy of having to cook.
I just think the person is just thinking about the. I suspect, and I may be wrong.
Yeah. We do not want to know what the advantages of dieting are.
That's a good advantage. Yeah.
Right.
But sometimes we overeat at home, right? And you do use a lot of dishes.
That's true.
Mimi Lee has a good disadvantage of diet and exercise. She's saying that you have to face the stressful thoughts of the situation instead of escaping by eating.
That's a great one. Yeah.
You gotta kind of face.
Have to face negative thoughts, feelings, and problems.
Yeah,
right.
That's the right idea for the disadvantages of diet and exercise.
Right. So should we bring this piece to closure?
Yeah.
How do we bring this to closure? So we have this patient or colleague that we're working with who says, gee, I'd like to lose some weight. And then when we've listed, well, we start out with 10, but then we added more advantages of overeating, but at least 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 disadvantages of diet and exercise. Oh, we've got more than 10 advantages of overeating. We've got about 15, at least 15 of them now. So then how do we bring this to closure with our patient?
You want me to give it a stab, David? Yeah, so I would say, great, David, it sounds like you've asked me for some help with your overeating and said that you'd really like to learn some skills with me for kind of diet and exercise. And on the one hand, that's kind of exciting. I've got lots of skills to offer you. However, it looks like there's actually tons of great reasons, tons of advantages to keep doing what you're doing, sort of free feeding and not dieting and exercising. And there's so many disadvantages to dieting and exercising. So I'm kind of confused. You'd have to really convince me that this were something you really wanted to do. And that's hard to imagine given all of these, advantages. What do you think?
Right. And then I'd have to give you an A+ on that. And let's just comment, Mike, on what Jill just did that was so awesome.
So what Jill was doing was what we call externalization of resistance in a sense. She's saying, here's all these great advantages and all these disadvantages. What would be the justification? Why would you want to give that up? It seems so awesome. It seems like such a great thing. And that's really what the patient or the client is thinking in their mind, subconsciously. That's their push, their power to continue with this habit. Yeah. We've just brought it out into the open now and actually become their resistance.
Yes,
and it's given them an opportunity.
That's awesome, and it's a deep form of empathy. Instead of assuming the patient is some kind of idiot and, here's a special trick or tool we use for, I'm going to help you lose some weight, we're really saying, I'm going to become your subconscious mind, and I'm going to show you I know where you're at. And we're going to have to look at that together, and you're going to have to convince me, in spite of all these reasons not to change, you're going to have to convince me that we should be working together. And that's a reversal of the normal therapeutic dynamic where the therapist is trying to help the patient. This is a paradoxical approach, and we're putting the patient in the driver's seat.
One way
Another neat thing that you did, Jill, was to dangle the carrot. These are high art forms. When we model them, we make them look simple. I think that's what a good teacher does, but it's really easy to screw up when you use this technique. And one would be not to dangle the carrot. You must be combining the paradox on the one hand with this dangling the carrot and saying, boy, we've got some really great techniques, and if you and I work together, I have no doubt we would be successful. You'd be successful in losing weight and getting in shape. But by gosh, I can't see why you would really want to do that. Yeah. That's the paradox. That's how the paradox works. There's one or two other really neat things about it, but I can't remember what they are. So Jill will tell us.
Well, Mike, looks like you were going to say something.
Or Mike.
I work one day a week in an addictions treatment center, ones who've had a really tough time. And I used to think of the habits and addictions as problems. And I would kind of look down on people that they had these problems. And now, since I've made this shift with the team, I don't see them as problems anymore. I actually see them as solutions that have consequences. And when you do the double paradox, you're really looking at, why is this such a powerful solution for them? Why has cocaine been the thing that's been working for them to this point? Why is, overeating actually working? And you're absolutely right. There's a deeper empathy that you get when you go, okay, well, that actually makes sense then. Why you would continue to battle with this? Why do I watch sports? Why does others do this?
Now, what would happen if a therapist is it possible that some therapists might use this paradox sarcastically?
Yeah, that would backfire on you, right?
Because why might a therapist use the paradox sarcastically?
Because you're trying to help.
Yeah. You're codependent, narcissistic, and haven't given up the idea that you're going to manipulate the patient. And also you may be feeling subconsciously angry with the patient. And so you're not really being respectful of all the reasons the person has the addiction.
Right. It's like we can't do any of these things without authenticity, right? We actually have to believe what we're saying, that there are a lot of good reasons to overeat and that it is pleasurable. We have to it is, I believe, such a deep form of empathy. And if you consider that most people who are really struggling with a habit or addiction, most people in their life will do the opposite. They'll say, here are 10 good reasons. They'll send them article after article about the negative effects of their choices and their behavior. So this is the first time that someone's actually saying, hey, I get it. I know why you're doing this. Let's talk about why you're doing it.
Yeah, and this will be hard for some therapists, as simple as it may look to you, because it requires the fourth death of the therapist's ego. There's four therapy ego required to do really good therapy, and this is the helping ego, the codependent ego that feels this compulsion to rush in and help and save the patient. And some therapists do not want to give that up or can't give that up, and so
worry about their patients, or feel that it is their responsibility to fix their patients almost against their will.
Yes, and so those therapists would actually be afraid of this technique, because this technique means you get out of your body, you go into the patient's self, you become the patient's resistance, you become the patient's mind. But the magical thing is that if you do this skillfully, 9 times out of 10, the patient will say, oh no, I really do want your help. And then you've got this incredibly motivated patient. What would we say though, and then we'll go on to the next technique, Jill and Mike, suppose the patient says, oh, you're right, I don't want to, diet and exercise or give up all this gooey food. What would you say?
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. I would say, well, in light of all we've discovered here, I'd have to be right with you, and maybe there's something else you'd like my help with. Full respect. Your choice is the most important in the direction here, and there are a lot of great things about it.
Right. What's the name of that technique?
That's called open hands.
Yeah, seen with open hands, and again, this requires a shift in the patient. Then the therapist, the patient can't change until the therapist has changed. And so to sit with open hands, that's like the Buddha sitting there. He's always sitting, kind of with his hands open and his thumb and finger like this, kind of like, to me, that symbolizes, if you want my help, I can show you the path to enlightenment. But if you aren't looking for the kind of help I'm offering, that I can let you go too. I don't need you to feed my ego. And it's a deep concept. It was hard for me to get there as a therapist. It took me quite a few years to let go of my own narcissistic codependency tendencies, which still sometimes get in the way and try to seduce me into saving somebody, which rarely works.
Yeah, so I was going to say to people, either way, then you sort of end up on the same side with your patient, right? Instead of being with, if you think about it like a tug of war, like I'm going to convince you to change, I'm going to show you how to change, you're going to resist, this is going to be hard. Your patient either says, yeah, there are a lot of advantages, but, my health is really bad and this and that, and I really want to change. And then they're arguing for change, and then together, off you go. Or they say, you're right. Gosh, there's so many reasons to keep doing what I'm doing. I really don't want to change. And then you go, yeah, that totally makes sense. Maybe there's something else you wanted my help with, or, my door is always open. If you change your mind in the future, you can let me know and we can do this work together. And again, either way, you're kind of on the same side, right? Either for change together or kind of letting go of the agenda for change together.
Yeah. Right.
Bernie's asking, why not go for a standard cost-benefit analysis? Why would we use the double paradox here?
It's just more powerful than when the standard cost-benefit analysis. If you want to do that, you need to do the 4-compartment decision-making form, Bernie, and that's too complex for today. It's a super tool. But a simple cost-benefit analysis implies that we're going to balance the advantages against the disadvantages and come up with a so-called correct decision. The advantages of overeating and the disadvantages of overeating, something like that. And it's still a kind of a helping tool. This is a far more pure, paradoxical, subconscious resistance tool.
Yeah, we could say that if we did that, then in a way we'd be forgetting. If you just did what are the advantages and disadvantages of overeating, then you'd never be looking at what are the disadvantages of dieting, right?
Right.
Which is like a serious issue, right? All the crap that comes along with diet. So that's why if we use the decision-making form, then we'll get that, right?
Dan asks a great question. Is this part of the methods or paradoxical agenda setting? This is part of paradoxical agenda setting.
Right, because we haven't yet helped the patient. The patient still doesn't have any idea how they're going to, diet or exercise. We're just helping them decide whether they actually want to.
Yeah.
With the double paradox, the advantages are the powerful forces that are getting us to continue doing what we're doing, and the disadvantages are the powerful forces that are preventing us from change. Right. When it comes to habit addictions, I always use the double paradox now.
Yeah. I'm glad. Do you like it?
Oh yeah. It's just you're absolutely. It's just so much more powerful.
Yeah.
It really gets to the heart, and like Jill and you pointed out that piece, you get a better sense of where people are actually at, where they're coming from, and when you do one for yourself, realize you have your own habits addictions. You go, oh, that makes more sense. Now I know why.
And although we brought this to crystal clear in the habits and addictions field, we do very similar things in the treatment of depression, anxiety, and relationship problems. Like in depression, what is this negative? There's some benefits to you in telling yourself that you're a loser, that you're a worthless human being. And also, what does this show about you that's positive and awesome? You see, again, taking the side of the patient that doesn't want to change, what is beautiful, what is desirable about your negative thoughts, rather than trying to talk the patient out of them. It's looking at all those motivational factors that keep people stuck. And again, that tool in the treatment of depression and anxiety has just been like having magic at my fingertips. It's so powerful and so effective. Well, let's move on.
One more thing, David, just before we transition those, people should know, those who were asking, why don't we do a straightforward CBA? I do want people to walk away knowing, so we do, the double paradox, but you always have to ask that question that we ended with, which is kind of something along the lines of like, wow, given all of these great advantages of overeating and the disadvantages of diet and exercise, kind of why would you want to change, right? Because that's inviting the patient to either argue for change or just say they don't want to change. So you don't just do the double paradox and say, keep at it, right? Like we want to offer them the question so they have the option to argue for change. And then the arguing for change essentially is what these people are looking for on sort of the other side. So I would write those down too. I'd say, oh, wow, it's hurting my health, or I'm spending so much money, or my mobility is, whatever it is. So we can write those down too.
And then you can continue to play the role of the resistance and say, well, that be enough of a motivation to increase your mobility, but look at all you're going to have to give up in order to do this. You sure you want to do that? So the patient continues to kind of play the devil's advocate here and really don't get to work on methods until the patient is totally convinced you that this is the direction that I want to go in. And then I think this will make, this is like, you might call it, this is the suggested subtitle for my new book, would be Cognitive Therapy on Steroids. And this is the afterburner that will make any method you use vastly more powerful. In fact, when I was training Matt May, who you guys both know, and who has turned into a phenomenal team therapist, a phenomenal local psychiatrist, did his residency at Stanford, and he teaches with us, and he's mind-blowing. But he was the first even to, I mean, he's a fabulous hypnotist and does magnificent hypnotherapy, among other things. But he says even hypnosis won't work very well without doing this paradoxical agenda first. And when he said that, I didn't understand it initially. Now I see it perfectly clearly. And I wonder if Jill has been frozen out. Are you frozen out, Jill?
Oh, yeah, it looks like we have, I do have her frozen.
Let's see what I'm going to do here. I might have to lower her down here. And then she's going to have to, okay, we got her back now.
There we go.
Yeah, now you're back.
I'm back.
You got frozen out. It happened last week on Stephen Fleiter's thing too.
Okay.
Set us up for the next piece now, moving into the habit addiction log and the devil's advocate. Maybe we could do this. I don't want to stop watching TV and sports and doing my taxes, or and set it up any way you want, Jill.
I wonder if we should just keep with the same example and the tempting thoughts associated with overeating, or did you want to shift gears?
That's great. Let's keep it simple, sure.
Yeah, that way you don't have to shift gears.
Yeah.
So let's pick a moment in time, though. David, did you wanted to do maybe like the walking by the donut shop moment in time, or?
Okay, yeah, like I can imagine myself. We don't have a donut shop here, but I can imagine how I'd be thinking if we did. So
I was just on vacation in Pismo Beach, where they had not only a donut shop with delicious donuts, but also a cinnamon roll shop, all on the same street.
Yeah, exactly. This is the Baker's Row here.
Exactly.
And
okay.
We need to tell them about the habit addiction log?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah, so basically what I guess I can introduce, we have, people might know the daily mood log. This is sort of a form that David has developed for habits and addictions. And instead of writing down the moment in time where one is feeling really down or blue, we're going to write the moment in time where you feel really tempted to do the thing that you really want our help in not doing. So if it's overeating, then I'm going to pick the moment in time where I feel tempted to overeat. If it's that I'm not going to bed on time, then I'm going to pick the moment where I'm feeling tempted to stay on Facebook or keep watching on TV, right? So it's the moment in time where you feel tempted, and then we're going to ask the patient to write that moment in time at the top. So here we would write down, let's say, walking by a donut shop. And then we circle here with our patients, we have a list of emotions. So we would, emotions are things like tempted or excited, some positive emotions, and then we also have negative emotions like stressed or exhausted, overwhelmed. We have a whole range of them. And then after identifying the situation and the feelings, then we write down the tempting quick thing. And then David, you can take it from here. But tempting thoughts are actually different than just identifying negative thoughts. I always encourage my patients to think of the thought that kind of drives the behavior you're trying to work on. Like, oh, that looks so good, so I'll just go in and grab one. Or, I've been so good all week. So they're the thoughts that kind of engage in the behavior that you're trying to not do.
And another point that's theoretically very interesting, we won't dwell on it much now, but that the thoughts that drive habits and addictions are generally involve positive distortions. And there's 10 positive distortions that mirror the 10 negative distortions that I first published in my book, Feeling Good, like all or nothing thinking. The depressed patient goes to the nothing of all or nothing, says I'm a loser, I'm worthless, I'm a zero in other words. Whereas the all or nothing thinking for an addiction is, that donut's going to taste so good. It's just going to make my life complete, type of thing. And there's the positive overgeneralization, and there's a positive filtering. There's positive fortune telling, positive emotion. In fact, even in relationship problems, self-blame is a negative distortion. Other blame is actually the positive distortion. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, it feels good to blame other people.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious, and it's a distortion because you're not looking at your own role in the problem. Well, we'll do that one another day, but let's talk about these donut shops and other tempting thoughts. So let's put down the first tempting thought, and you listeners can put down your own tempting thoughts. But that glazed donut will taste so good. 3 exclamation points. What are some more tempting thoughts?
My own personal favorite. I'll just have one bite.
Yeah, I'll just have one bite. How about the entitlement thought? I deserve a donut. Life sucks.
Life sucks. I deserve a donut. Yeah. Or I'll start the diet tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll be good tomorrow.
I'll start.
Oh, or how about, I've also heard I'll just exercise more later.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I'll exercise more later on, and I'll have a salad for dinner instead.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to make this a general learning point, which should be obvious, these things have to be written down. Both the therapist and the patient would write them down, and they would be the same kind of deal as if it's for alcohol. You're gazing in the refrigerator and you see this bottle of Budweiser beer, with the kind of the beads of water on it, like what they have on TV. You know what I'm talking about? It looks so cold, and you're thinking, a sip of Budweiser. I can just put it to my lips right now. Oh, it'll taste better than sex. Budweiser, the beer is going to be so wonderful. We lost Jill again, so I got her down here. And I don't know why we sometimes lose people on these things, but she's back now. Oh, no, she's still on no broadcast mode. She'll need to reset her computer.
Well, you do that.
But it's the same types of pattern of thoughts, but it could be for drugs, for not going to bed, sticking on the computer, for procrastinating, for any kind of habit or addiction. So we hope Jill will be back here in a couple of minutes. But why don't?
Yep, absolutely.
So why don't we set up how to do the devil's advocate now? Oh, here's Jill is back. No, she flashed off again. So I don't know if it's her internet connection or ours or what. But at any rate, we can do it here until she comes back. The way you set it up, it's similar externalization of voices. We got you back here, Jill. Let's see. There we go. And again, if your connection broke or what, but we're glad to have you.
About that, I don't know either.
Just setting up the devil's advocate.
Great.
Yeah, and it's just exactly like externalization of voices. We had on Feeling Good podcast recently on that, I think, Monday, and people seem to really like it. But it's just exactly the same as externalization of voices, except you use positive thoughts rather than negative thoughts. And you set it up with the patient. There's some fine tuning points about this, too, that we can point out. But you say to the patient, I'm going to be that tempting part of your brain, and I'm going to try to tempt you to give in and go and buy one of those donuts and take a bite of it. And you seem to be, and you can play the role of that part of your brain that resists and doesn't give in. So why don't you? I'll start out as the tempting self. Who would like to be the resisting self?
Sure. Why don't I do it just in case we lose Jill again? That way we can keep it rolling, and then she can play co-therapist.
And Jill, you and I will both be the tempting selves. We'll take turns trying to tempt Mike there. Mike, just smell that smell from the bakery. Those are glazed donuts inside. Your lips tremble with excitement. Just go walk into the bakery and just take a look at them. They might have they're super fresh. They just put them there on display.
They do smell incredibly good, and they would be delicious. There's no doubt about that. But if I let that urge overwhelm me, then I'm going to mess up my diet. I want to get back on track. I just feel crappy afterwards. It's just not worth it.
Your turn, Jill.
But Mike, you're with your family. They're going to get donuts. You don't have to get your own donut. You could just have a bite of your wife's donut. One bite won't hurt.
That's what I've always told myself in the past, is just one bite, and then one bite turns into two, and then pretty soon I've got the 6-pack on my hip, and I'm on the way, and I can never stop one bite.
Well, Mike, you don't have to stop at one bite. The one bite is just the beginning of a fabulous adventure that you can have right now, and you can eat all the donuts you want.
Yes, that sounds incredibly satisfying, and it will be in the moment. Actually, it will feel like heaven on my tongue. But later in the day, I'll have that stomach ache, and I won't have that energy that I need, and then I'll feel guilty and beat myself up, and I won't want to go to the gym. And so, no, I'm not going to do it.
Your turn, Jill.
But Mike, yeah, doesn't that restrictive? I mean, you don't want to be that stick in the mud person on the diet. Don't you want to be more flexible and kind to yourself? A donut every now and then.
Well, you make it sound so terrible that this is a lifestyle change. It's not a diet, and it's not restrictive, because I'm changing my lifestyle here, and I'm just not going to be in that world anymore. I'm going to be rearranging. So I feel, when I eat well, I actually feel a lot better, and when I get exercise.
Mike, you're going to feel a lot better when you start eating that donut. In fact, it's going to be almost like an orgasm, and you deserve a donut. So go for it now. Just
I deserve a lot of different things, but I don't deserve to feel crappy afterwards. That's another one of those fortune-telling distortions that we pointed out earlier, and that emotional reasoning that you're going with there. I'm not buying that.
Okay, so who's winning?
I think I'm winning.
Big or small?
Pretty big.
Big or huge?
Huge most of the time, yeah.
Yeah. Now, let's say, and you were huge, you were very powerful. Now, patients will not always be that effective, and there's something the therapist has to do when the patient fails. So let's model what to do when the patient doesn't give an effective refutation. So how do you want to set this up?
Why don't you model, David? I think you have a nice way.
I'll be the patient?
Oh, no, I was going to have you model the therapist. So let's.
The therapist. And which of you wants to be the patient?
Yeah, so why don't you hit Mike again with one of these tempting thoughts, and Mike will do a kind of response, and then you can model how we would respond when he gets done.
Okay, great. Because this is very, very important, and this is a hard technique for therapists to learn, but it's really crucial not only in the treatment of habits and addictions, but when you're doing melting away resistance, relationship problems, anxiety, and depression, procrastination. This is a tremendous therapeutic technique. Now, I'm going to be the tempting thoughts here, and Mike is not going to be his brilliant, powerful self, but he's going to be kind of cave in a little bit. Mike, Mike, you can start your diet tomorrow. It's the weekend. The bakery's not going to be open tomorrow, but right now is your chance they're just fresh. They just came out, and you need to just go on in there. And today is a day for celebration and for eating, one or, a couple if you want of those delicious glazed donuts.
Well, you know what? I guess I could start the gym program tomorrow, and one bite probably won't hurt. Even though I don't want to, it's not the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You can go on in and have a diet, have a donut, Mike. And what I'm hearing from you is maybe this isn't something you want to give up. Now, what just happened? Jill will comment.
Right. Well, you certainly didn't offer to save the day and convince him and remind him and offer a self-control thought. You kind of sat with open hands and said, maybe this isn't something that you want to have to do.
Right. Now, what mistakes might many therapists make when patient, I was just petting the little kitty, Misty, hi pretty. She's getting more and more affectionate all the time.
A huge temptation to want to help come up with a good response, right?
Yes, and can you see that temptation results from the therapist's narcissism and codependency? Like the therapist wants to be an expert and I'm going to help you. And why is that strategy doomed?
We want to save the day.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, one reason it's doomed to failure is because the patient, you're not going to be in the bug in the ear when the patient is outside in the real world walking by the donut shop. And so the patient really does need to be able to generate these self-control thoughts, on their own, right?
Yeah, and it also implies that the patient's so stupid that they can't, deal with.
They couldn't think of it.
Going in and out of the donut store. And so it's a kind of a patronizing move, whereas the paradoxical question I ask is like sitting with open hands and saying, this is your deal, guy, and if this isn't something you want to change right now, that's cool. That's cool with me. And then generally when you do that, when you don't chase after this reluctant patient, then generally the patient will suddenly sing a different tune, but it saves you from a lot of frustration and yes-butting and so forth. I'm just looking at our list to see if there's other things we need to comment on here before the end.
I just want to make one quick comment, which is so that people understand, these are a couple of tools, right? There are many other tools. Certainly stimulus control is something we haven't talked about, but seems essential, which is this idea of not having available to you, like if I were trying to give up sugar, getting sugar out of my house or,
not walking past that
the donut shop, right? Routing your walk home from work a different way. Exactly. So, and other things. And lots of times we encourage people who are really wanting to give up, alcohol or drugs to actually go to AA. Or other sorts. So just for people to know, these are some tools in a toolbox of many, right?
Yeah. And people have been coming up with really good chiming in things. I won't read them all right now because we're close to the end, but I appreciate your being on the same wavelength. We've given up our little commercial messages at the beginning of the podcast or the broadcast because it was a turnoff to people, but we do have a few quick ones to include at the end, and there's a couple things that might be of interest to people. First, both Mike and Jill have online classes that are available right now. These are with small groups of individuals who meet weekly for like 6 weeks or 12 weeks to get an introduction to Teams CB. You can do your own personal work on them. They're generally an hour and a half a week. You do plan and practice. It's a little different from this because you can actually all interact. You're all on the screen together, and those are tremendous. I strongly recommend both of them. Also, both of them are clinicians in clinical practice. Mike works with people all over Canada, not in the U.S. because he's licensed in Canada, but he can connect with you if you or you have a patient or you yourself want some treatment in Canada. He can do that through the internet connections. And Jill is one of the most fantastic clinicians I know, working here in California at the Feeling Good Institute, and they also do intensives for people who fly in from all over the country or Canada or anywhere for a 2 or 3 day intensive. And then the last thing I want to promote is on May 20th, Jill and I are doing a 1-day workshop with Mike's help, actually. That it's going to be in Palo Alto. There's only 3 or 4 seats left for the live, but we have plenty join online, and then Mike and others will be helping the online people with the small group practices that will be featured in this workshop, one-day workshop on May 20th. How can they find out about these things?
Yeah, so I'll let people know. So the Feeling Good Institute website, which is www.feelinggoodinstitute.com.
Oh, she just got cut off. Has
punished
all
it
has all the information. The Feeling Good Institute website. You can connect there. It's got both the links for the online kind of therapy and work that we do, as well as the training courses that are available, as well as the information for the upcoming workshop. And then one kind of final plug for you, David, of course, is your intensives coming up in the spring and summer. And in June, I'll be joining you in Calgary and Winnipeg, and then in Canada here in Whistler in July. We want to make sure people are available to know that they can come and do that work live in person with you.
And you can find my workshops on my website, www.feelinggood.com, and there's also tons of free resources there. The weekly Feeling Good podcasts, all the blogs and other things for you. Well, the clock on the wall says 4 o'clock, so why don't we be quasi-disciplined? It was a joy working with both of you, and I've really accomplished the goals, gave people an overview of some of the powerful newer techniques for working with habits and addictions, including the double paradox, the daily habit and addiction log, the devil's advocate technique. We talked about positive distortions and put this all in the context of an individual relationship with the patient rather than just throwing formulas at people, and other powerful techniques that would be available as well, such as stimulus control and many others. So this is just kind of a little, yeah. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.